I want to have an honest conversation about how filmmakers evolve after each film. Filmmaking is a continuous journey of tweaks to perfecting your art. In this video, I will break down how Charlie Kaufman evolved as a filmmaker using 3 films he's been a part of as the foundation of my study: Being John Malkovich, Synecdoche, New York, and Anomalisa. Charlie began his career working as a writer for a sitcom called Get a Life after David Merkin read one of Charlie's scripts. Charlie wrote around 30 more episodes for other TV shows. One of the shows he wrote for got canceled and Charlie was now out of work. He began to write Being John Malkovich in hopes it would get him hired again for more work on TV. I wrote it just to get assignment work. I never thought anyone was going to make it. Then Malkovich read it and liked it, which I was very happy about, and I thought that was as far as it was going to go. And it was, for a couple of years. Then it kind of came together. The way I look at Charlie Kaufman's writing is the same way I look at a comedian who's working out a joke. Working out a joke is when a comedian finds a funny topic and on stage they begin to test different perspectives, different pacings, words, movements, etc. to sculpt the joke perfectly.
So I read them sometimes that these horrific crimes were happening. In Houston, Texas, there was a serial rapist, which rape, by the way, is never funny, ever. And the only reason I bring this particular rapist up is because all his victims were men. I'm not joking. 7 men, so you can't YouTube this is really. 7 men in the Houston area came forward and reported this guy, which means he must have raped thousands.
Listen, I was looking at the paper the other day. I'm not making this up. There's a serial rapist in Houston. There's nothing funny about serial rape, but what is noteworthy about this particular rapist is that all of his victims have been men. Enjoy your evening. I can't believe you clapped about that. It's a man raping men in Houston. It's the most gangster shit. So far, like 7 men have already come forward in the Houston area and reported this motherfucker, which means he must have raped thousands.
With Charlie, I feel he's working out one story until he perfectly sculpts it. A story about a person who falls in love with someone who is not their significant other.
Buy a drink, Maxine? Maxine?
Are you married?
Yeah, but enough about me.
Yeah.
The story sculpting starts with Being John Malkovich, as Craig falls in love with Maxine. Craig is unsuccessful in gaining Maxine's attraction and the attention of people with his puppet craft. However, as soon as Craig controls Malkovich, Craig garners the attention of Maxine and revolutionizes culture as a puppeteer. The angle evolves in Adaption, as it's Suzanne who falls in love with LaRoche while she has a husband in New York. This relationship is paralleled with something LaRoche says about the relationships of flowers with bees, mentioning how once you spot your flower, you can't let anyone get in your way. In Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, the angle is the full relationship after the person leaves their spouse for someone else. Naomi is never in the movie, but we know Joel left Naomi to be with Clementine, and this film shows just the relationship between Clementine and Joel.
You're married.
Not yet. Not married. No, I'm not married.
In Synecdoche, New York, Adele leaves Caden to be with Maria in Berlin. This film shows the loneliness and the effects this choice by Adele has on Caden. Michael in Anomalisa struggles with everyone looking and sounding the same. He desperately intends to leave his marriage and child in search to find the one person who is unique, Lisa. Kaufman has publicly acknowledged how fortunate he's been to work with Spike Jonze and Michael Gondry because both directors have been extremely collaborative with Kaufman. He has also expressed his frustration with George Clooney's lack of collaboration with Confessions of a Dangerous Mind. I didn't like it. That was a movie in which I was not consulted. I mean, George Clooney changed the script. He didn't talk to me during production. We kind of didn't get along. I was invited to see the movie when he was pretty much done, and I wrote a bunch of notes and gave them to him, and I guess it was offensive to him. This experience made him return to the people he felt comfortable collaborating with. Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind was directed by Michael Gondry, who both collaborated on Human Nature prior to all of this. Then, he reached out to Spike Jonze to direct his next film, Synecdoche, New York. However, Spike Jonze ended up directing Where the Wild Things Are instead. Synecdoche, New York ended up being Charlie Kaufman's directorial debut. In Synecdoche, New York, Charlie explores the theme of death farther than he has in Being John Malkovich and Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. But I also want to note that he does explore this theme even further in his recent Adaption film, I'm Thinking of Ending Things. The idea of Synecdoche came about Charlie and Spike talking about making a horror film about the real scary things in the world, as opposed to what we see in the average horror film. Things they mentioned were mortality, illness, time passing, and loneliness. As for the cinematography, Charlie has used different cinematographers for all 3 films he's directed. Cinematographer Frederick Elms points out that Charlie was learning as they went by because Synecdoche was his first film he directed. Kaufman wanted the film to look as real as possible, so natural light was used often. The last film in this study is Anomalisa. The film takes place in the Frugoli, named after the Frugoli syndrome that inspired Charlie to write this piece. Frugoli syndrome is where everybody they see is the same person.
Sorry. Hello. You can fuck me if you want, Mr. Stone. Any of us. Just not Lisa. Not Lisa!
Kaufman employs replication in Synecdoche, New York as well, where Caden not only sees a doppelganger, but a quadruple ganger. This idea of replication originally started from Being John Malkovich. I trust my interest in it. I used it in my first screenplay, Being John Malkovich, when he goes into his own portal and finds a world filled with himself. I don't know why I like the feeling of it. Charlie funded this film using Kickstarter, earning the production team a whopping $400,000 to keep it independently funded. The film flopped financially, but was loved by everyone who has seen it. Synecdoche, New York had the same flopping story. Back-to-back flops took a toll on how Charlie Kaufman saw himself as a filmmaker. If his films lose money, then it would be hard for him to continue his passion. Then he made a deal with Netflix, which made him care less about the numbers. I felt really weird about that. This is the second time that's happened to me. And it's like I stopped caring. And then this thing with Netflix is, it doesn't matter. There's no box office. The movie will play on Netflix forever. And it won't disappear in a week because the box office isn't doing well. And that's fine with me. And so that sort of pushed me in that direction of not caring what I think. Not that I don't want to work or not be interested. It just means that it's outside of my control. If you want to evolve like Charlie, explore topics, expand on themes, and find that story that you want to kind of work out like a comedian. Hey, I want to thank everybody for taking the time to watch the video. It really means a lot if you guys could like, subscribe, and hit the notification button. It really helps the channel grow and it lets you guys know when the next video comes out. Thank you, and I'll see you next week.